everybody, it's me again, Dansmonsters, with another Dan Rambles. What we're going to talk about today? Well, now this story was in a fanzine that the great Simon Russell and the gang from the Awesome Comics podcast put out a few months ago now, which I cannot remember the blooming name of it. Oh, what was it called? Mabel, it'll come to me. Anyway, so this was in there, and I have decided to just do a bit of an audio version of that tale. So if you've heard it before, I'm really sorry. Anyway, so it is all to do with my discovery of Frank Miller and my fandom of Jerry Anderson at the time. So, which not two things you would put together normally, but honestly, it works out. Now, start from the beginning. So I've always read comics as a kid. Been really important to me. I used to read Beano, big one being Warlord and Battle Action, obviously. And then the sci-fi stuff came along with, obviously, 2000 AD, Star-Lord and Tornado and stuff like that hit the shelves. So I was spending as much as the money as I could do on comics every week, the British comics every week. Not so much American ones, to be fair, because they were really difficult to get hold of. But yeah, whatever I could get hold of, I would do. And then Marvel UK filled the gap in for those US comics that we couldn't get. They were like black and white Hulk comics, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Captain Britain. So the Marvel UK Marvel UK 2000 AD Battle Action were the big ones for us. The American ones you didn't get hold of a lot of the time. I think they use as ballast, I believe, to fetch stuff over to the UK and Europe. So you get like number 3, and then the next one you get will be number 100. So not that it ever bothered, because you didn't really follow the tales. You just read them for what they were. It's brilliant. And of course the adverts that were in the back of these American comics were stuff that just seemed a million miles away that could never access. Order comics at your local comic shop. Comic conventions in this country? Oof, no, I don't think so. Anyway, then of course the comics industry started to boom in the sort of 80s. And my eldest brother was the one who took me to my first comic shop, which was, if I remember rightly, Odyssey 7 in Manchester, which he used to go to a bit on his trips because he's about 3 years older than me. But there were more and more comic shops turning up left, right and centre. And in fact, it was my brother who told me that there was one opening up in Blackpool, which was only 20 minutes away from where we lived. And it was called Thunderbooks. And if you've ever heard of Blackpool, I'm sure a lot of you have, but anybody who hasn't, it's a northern seaside town that's a little bit, well, it's not as good as it used to be, let's put it that way. So, it being the late 80s, shops opened up left, right and centre, major cities were different to get to, but the idea of one being in Blackpool, wow, this was an amazing thing. 15 minutes, 20 minutes on the train from us, from Preston, where we lived. So my brother did a bit of research, managed to find out the address of the place via a friend, no internet obviously then, and off we went to Blackpool. We followed our directions, excited at the prospect of this new shop, no doubt full of amazing wonders of the comics world. Anyway, we wandered around quite a lot with a map, no GPS, and we sort of found ourselves in the middle of a very pleasant housing estate, but not a single shop in sight. And the address my brother had an actual house number on it. I can't remember what it was. I'll say number 10 Blackpool Road or something like that. So we had this number, and they were looking around the streets, and then this house was just there, and it was the address that my brother had on the piece of paper. So a little bit bemused, my brother knocked on the front door, and we could hear these kids playing, obviously in the garden because it was a nice day. And this chap peered over the top of the gate and said, "Hello?" And we told him that what we were doing and what we were looking for. We were looking for a comic shop, and this is the address we have. We were quite obviously in the wrong place because this was somebody's house. "Ah," the chap said, "you want Thunderbooks?" We were like, "Oh, yeah, we do, yeah. Don't worry about it," he said. So he gave us the address, gave us the directions. We were really grateful to him how he knew. We were like, "Wow, it's amazing. How does he know that? It must be really big in Blackpool." And off we popped, somewhat bemused. Anyway, eventually found it on the main drag in Blackpool, and I mean, what a place. You know, it was just racks and racks of comics and models and books and toys. Not like now, just all the stuff that you couldn't get hold of. It was like, oh my God, that's incredible. I remember just being utterly beside myself, and I can still remember that real feeling these days. And I don't think I've ever been into a comic shop where I've felt like that, apart from maybe Forbidden Planet in New York. But it was like, oh my God, no Funkos. That's, yeah, I seem to be now. That's all they seem to be full of. But just like toys from other countries, which were like other worlds we'd never even heard of. Anyway, so we are just mooching about, looking through all the racks, unbelievable. And then this chap walks in, and it's the chap who directed us to the shop. And it basically happened to be a chap called David Nightingale, who was the owner of Thunderbooks. Now, the time with the Gerry Anderson things, me and my brother were big fans of comics and movies, obviously, but we were really big fans of Gerry Anderson's Supermarionation TV shows like Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlett, UFO Space 1999. It was staple TV viewing in my house. My parents were like big fans as well. We were members of the Fanderson fan club. Fan clubs back in the day. We had signed letter from Gerry Anderson. We had our badges and stickers, and we got a magazine called SIG, which was the magazine that David was the editor for, because he was a massive, massive part of the Anderson fan scene. Well, as you can imagine, we were looking at him and he went, "Oh, you found the place?" And we were like, "Mate, this is amazing." We had a really good laugh about the fact that we ended up at his house. Anyway, it was always really helpful whenever we visited, and he opened a Thunderbooks 2 in Preston later on, and unfortunately both shops have passed on to new owners under different names now. And I only recently discovered that David passed away last November, I think it was. So it was on this day that I came across a Batman book like I'd never seen before, which was Dark Knight Returns issue 2, Frank Miller and Klaus Johnson prestige format card cover. Oh wow, I mean, these were a thing, these prestige format comic books. What was this? Now, I'm sure I will have bought others in the time, but this was the most amazing thing I'd seen. It completely blew my mind because of the artwork, the way that it was laid out, the writing. And it was also a bit like, I don't know if I should be reading this. It's got a bit of swearing in it. You know, it's a bit violent. But I purchased it. And I never managed to get hold of the first issue. I had to buy the trade paperback many years later. I ordered the next series whilst I was there. Was it 4 issues? The start of my early pull list. And then the titles just keep coming after that. Every time we went every week. The brilliant miniseries like Dead Man, Love and Death, Justice Inc., with Justice Incorporated, which is about a guy's face that changes shape, electric stretchy face, Electro Assassin, Stray Tortoise, Havoc and Wolverine, to name a few. If you can find them, check them out. They are incredible feats of art and writing from, like, obviously Bill Sienkiewicz and John J. Muth. Just incredible. Kent Williamson art, just amazing. Now I still have that copy of Dark Knight Returns in its original plastic bag that I purchased it in, and it's probably the start of a hobby that consistently emptied my youthful pockets and introduced me to some of my finest and best friends. And obviously those explosions of titles were just incredible, and it set my mind alight. The publishing boundaries and the ideas of the art, it was all to implode on itself sometime later, but what a time to be into comics. Image, Dark Horse, Epic, and even the awesome attempt of Warrior magazine, and then of course you had Deadline and going on from things. Honestly, I don't think these companies would ever take risks like they used to then. IP is everything now, I suppose, and the marketing it of all is what makes movies, and I suppose most people who like the movies don't really like the comics, or never even knew it was a comic. Now, me and my brother were still fans of comics. We do go to the shows, go to the shops, but obviously we're faced with just loads of merchandise and Funko toys, with unfortunately the comics being stuffed away in the cellar of most places. I think OK Comics in Leeds is the best one I've seen so far. And I haven't read a mainstream comic for about, I dread to think how long, 2, 3, maybe 4 years. There's not really much that grabs my attention. Mark Miller stuff's okay, I really like that. And I've pretty much given up on the big two. and generally comics don't interest me as much as they do. That's a really sad statement, but I thought I'd never say. But I think manga is the way forward. My son reads a lot of it, although he's started reading some of my older comics, which are great. But I don't know, comics, not what they used to be, but that's a whole other thing. So that's the connection between Frank Miller and Gerry Anderson, and I only really realised the importance of it recently. They're both together. It'll always be, for me, a really big deal. Going to that comic shop, discovering that comic, and also the guy who ran it was a big Anderson fan, which is just great. And I'm sorry that I never got the chance to thank David for opening his store and being so kind to two strange kids who literally turned up on his doorstep. And Gerry Anderson passed away in 2012. Frank Miller is, he's 70 now? I'm not even going to think about that one. So thanks, David, Gerry and Frank. I bet no one ever thought that your names would end up in the same sentence. On a side note, I saw the adverts for San Diego Comic Con and I thought I'd never have a chance of visiting it. I thought I had more chance of visiting San Diego while looking at these comics. I had a better chance of going to Narnia. Anyway, I visited San Diego in 2010 for my 40th birthday with my brother, but that's a whole other tale worthy of a comic series on its own. Anyway, guys, I hope that wasn't too rambly enough. It certainly was very rambly. Not going to edit this, I'm just going to leave it as it is. Thanks for joining me. If you want to listen to more, they're always free on my Patreon, but if you want to support me on my Patreon, please do. You can support me for get little off chances of getting free art, become a member of the Monster Bomb Club, stickers, badges, but also I put a lot of stuff on Patreon like videos, sketchbook scans, all starting at £1.50, and any support would be grateful. But otherwise you can follow me on Instagram, and like I say, you can follow me on Patreon where I do put free stuff in there, just like this podcast. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for listening. I'll catch up with you again soon. Thanks, guys. Bye!